Hello everyone and welcome back to YCS Charlotte. We're here at the Charlotte Convention Center. It's a beautiful day outside and we're back at in-person YCS. It's been so great so far. Only one round down. We're here in the second round of Swiss. We had over 1,000 players competing, and half of them, still undefeated, moving on with that 1-0 record, but still a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh to be played. It's been so exciting to be back in person, Robbie. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, same thing, Billy. I mean, we keep on talking about it. Everyone is stoked to be here, and we've had a great match so far in round one, and I'm excited to see what happens in round two. There's a lot of decks flying around, everything from Phantom Knights, the Adventure Synchro decks, Flaunderies, Prank Kids, a ton of stuff going on that, I haven't even mentioned there. And there's still further innovation to be had, right? The bigger these decks get, the more cards they cram in, and the cooler things we get to see them do. I am so excited to see exactly what we have in store for this round.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of unexplored strategies. Sometimes players get to that moment where they think, oh, well, this is the format. There's really not much going on, but there's still a lot to learn and discover, so we'll figure out what's going to happen. But without further ado, let's jump into round two of our Swiss rounds here at YCS Charlotte. Got a really good matchup here for this round. Our first player, we have Nick Ma. First up, we have Kamal. This is actually Nick Ma on this side, but Nick Ma is from New Jersey. Kamal will be his opponent. Nick Ma from New Jersey, a decorated duelist who's done a lot, and then his opponent, Kamal Crooks. He is a remote duel YCS champion. He is a YCS champion. He's been all over the place. He's also a bounty here this weekend, which means there's packs on the line this round. If he wins, he's going to add to his stack. If Nick Ma can manage to defeat this YCS champion, he's going to be able to take all those packs and have a little bonus from winning this, exciting second round feature match.
Yeah, luckily Nick even has his name on the side of his hat just in case anyone was not aware or confused. That is indeed Nick Ma on the left, Kamal Crooks on the right, now the bottom. Kamal Crooks, remote duel YCS champion, incredibly decorated player, but Nick Ma, as we mentioned, no slouch. He's been around for a long time, incredible duelist. We've even seen him doing some Duel to Masters, the convention scenes as well. Incredible player, incredible guy if you ever get to meet him. But the main thing here will be, can Kamal Crooks continue his success that he saw on the remote duel YCS circuit? Not to say he didn't, do some incredible things during last time we saw him during regular play, but obviously there's some amount of momentum to be had from that remote duel YCS circuit, and whether or not he can bring it back to the in-person championship series is what we're here to see today. Yeah,
it's certainly going to be an exciting one, and both these players, playing some interesting decks that we might not expect going into this tournament. I believe Nick Ma is on a Drytron strategy, which was one of the most dominant decks over the past year. But then, with Eva being on that Forbidden Limitless, it lost a lot of power, lost a lot of the being able to use just Herald of Perfection and fill your hand with fairies. But we'll have to wait and see. It looks like the players are just going ahead and switching sides, making sure they're on the right side for this feature match to make things flow a little bit easier for us. But, I'm excited to see how this Drytron strategy is going to match up. And then on the other side, we have Kamal Crooks, who's using an interesting deck that I don't think I've ever seen any other player really, use the kind of cards. I'm not going to spoil the surprise for you guys at home, but it is a 60-card conglomerate of a powerful deck with, the adventure cards are for sure in there. Anytime you see your opponent 60 cards, you can pretty much assume that the adventure package is going to be in there. You might be able to guess that Fusion Destiny will be a huge part of it. But we'll have to see what other combination of cards he's using here to try and take an edge and get that advantage to become get another YCS championship under his belt.
Yeah, I think conglomerate was a great word to use there. It's just a bunch of different little parties of deck types, making a deal. I have a business transaction for you, my friends. Together, are powerful, unstoppable, right? That's what we see with the 60-card Adventure Synchro deck, and that's probably what we're going to see with Kamal's 60-card deck as well here. But as you mentioned, a different take on it, right? Different flavor. It's definitely some powerful things you've seen before and some things you might not have. But big thing is, can it take down Drytron, right? Drytron, one of those decks you talked about before, it used to be unstoppable, right?
Really, it felt that way at least.
Yeah, Cyber Angel, Ben 10, incredible card. Incredible card, no once per turn restriction. Doesn't have access to that quite anymore. However, can still do a lot of very powerful things. But here we are in game one of round two of YCS Charlotte. We have Nick Ma on the bottom, Kamal Crooks here at the top. We'll see exactly who won that die roll, which is going to be incredibly important. And it looks like it was Kamal. He's going to start things off with Water Enchantress, getting him access to Rites of Armasir.
Yep. And as we mentioned, 60 cards, you can expect to see it. And starting off, the Enchantress is huge. You're able to get that Wandering Griffin Rider onto the field to allow to protect the rest of your plays and be able to fully combo. Now, he is using a warrior-based strategy, so we'll have to see what kind of start he's going to be able to have. I'm really interested to see the combo he has. Looking at his deck list, I'm not really certain what it's going to. It's like I said, this is kind of a brand new take on a strategy, and maybe it'll pay off big here. Usually when you can go to a YCS with something that's unexpected or players haven't seen before, it can give you that edge you need to lock into that day 2 tournament.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see exactly what we have in store here in terms of like end board, right? When you think of Kamal's deck, like we see it get a little sneak peek on the deck type there. That's a lot of words, right? Adventurer Destiny, Infernoble Knight, Phantom Knights. That's a lot of warrior stuff going on. A lot of powerful engines interacting, but exactly how he's going to end, what his end board is, it's going to be the most exciting part, right? Obviously, how he gets there as well.
I think
we'll see.
The big thing is that Infernoble part, right? That's the most exciting part. It's not just a little Infernoble package, maybe a combination of other Infernoble monsters. So we'll have to see how it plays out here. Yeah, you see him using the Faithful Adventure to search for a card we haven't seen much use yet, but that's Magicore, Warrior of the Relics. It is a different card that does mention the Adventure token. It is a warrior monster that you can just special summon from your hand if you control an Adventure token. So when you're trying to get to something like Isolde, you're able just to special summon a warrior. So he's going to discard Forbidden Droplet from his hand, since that's the cost after he adds from Faithful Adventure. And now he's going to try and special summon that Magicore, Warrior of the Relics, to the field. Or it looked like he was going to, but it looks like he was just showing him what he grabbed.
No, I think the judge was just reading it really quickly, making sure he also understands, because as you mentioned, not an Adventurer card we see very often. Adventurer, an engine that everyone's aware of, everyone knows exactly what it does, but there are some other cards that sometimes, might be worthwhile, and we see it here as a way to get to Isolde easier. Definitely something you want to look into. He's going to go ahead and special that, trigger the effect of Faithful Adventure to grab Draco back from his deck to his hand.
Yep, and then we're going to see Infernoble Arms Durandal, I believe, being activated here. Or is that, I think it's Durandal Joycleese. No. And now he's going to activate it and be able to get that monster.
Yep, Nick Ma also giving a read, wants to make sure he is aware of exactly what Kamal is up to here with his deck. Already sees a couple cards he might not be familiar with, so he knows it's going to be a different take than what he might be used to from an Adventurer deck.
See what warrior he decides to grab from the deck and add to his hand.
Gotta assume it might be Fire Flintlight. Nope, it is.
It looks like he did add Renaud, and then Renaud's going to special summon and add back the equip card that was destroyed.
Second effect for warriors, right? Or is that the first effect?
Second effect.
Okay, gotcha.
When I special summon one back for the rest of the turn, I can only summon a warrior.
Yep, so he gets to add back the equip card. Now with 2 warriors on the field, it's been a while. I mean, it's been a couple of years where Isolde was so dominant, and like the main goal of a lot of decks, like maybe now it's Hauka Fibrax, was always to just get those 2 warrior monsters on the field, and that's full combo, right? Full Orcust combo back in the day, and now Isolde, a really powerful card, especially when you're using 60 to like not worry about having to draw so many of those equip spells you have to play in order to enable the powerful part of Isolde. And then the Isolde's effect, when it's summoned, gets to add a warrior. Going to grab the Immortal Gearfried. Immortal Phoenix Gearfried.
Thank you.
And we get a little sneak peek at Kamal's hand. We do see that Destiny Hero Celestial in hand. It always just feels like you always either draw Celestial or Dasher or have one of those like in your hand always. Not always the worst, because you can still use the Fusion Destiny and you send it from your hand, but certainly want it to be a different card usually. And now it looks like he's using Isolde's effect to send equip cards from the deck to the graveyard. I saw a Divine Sword, Phoenix Blade being one of the first choices he's probably going to send. Yeah, Living Fossil and Durandal. And now he'll be able to special summon a level 3 warrior. I mean, Divine Sword Phoenix Blade, that's an old one. And it's always been really good. It's an equip card you can add back from your graveyard to your hand by banishing 2 warriors from the graveyard. And a deck full of warriors, definitely going to happen. He can add it back, and now he can activate the Torn Scales effect on the field, since it is a special summon monster, and discard it to send Phantom Knight Ancient Cloak to the graveyard.
I mean, we talked a lot about, back in the day at least, Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. Incredible, right? Always gives you advantage, always gives you a way to discard cards, whatever the cost may be. Here we see it interacting with the Phantom Knights. He's going to go ahead and kick down the Phantom Knight, Ancient Cloak. He's going to banish it, grab Silent Boots from the deck to his hand. And we see this, just these warrior engines interacting here between the Infernobles and the Phantom Knights being bridged by Isolde. Upside to playing all these cards in his deck too means he can fit in these equips and not need to worry about drawing them all the time, right? That was always an issue with Isolde, especially in the lower 40 card decks. If you drew too many equip spells, things did not go well. But with so many powerful equip spells now, thanks to the Informable cards, right, especially Durandal, definitely have access to some good ones.
Yeah, certainly. And then being able to add them back from the graveyard. So he's going to link into Appaloosa right off the bat, trying to play around something like Nibiru, the Primal Being, or any other sort of monster effect the opponent could have in hand to disrupt his turn. But now he's just sitting on that adventure token in defense mode. It's 2,000 attack, 2,000 defense, and Appaloosa, which I believe he used with 3 materials, so it has 2,400 attack. Be able to negate a few monster effects, hopefully. And then he's going to banish the boots to add Phantom Knight Shade Burgundy from his deck to his hand. You know, Shade Burgundy, it's kind of cool. He's like, you think of Boots being able to search Fogblade, set up for, you know, your opponent's turn, but being able to get something like Shade Burgundy, you're literally searching for a monster you can just special summon. And since he banished a Phantom Knight from his graveyard, that's going to trigger the Torn Scales in the graveyard, special summon back to the field. Then he's going to link the token and Torn Scales into Dagda.
Activate the Phantom Knights Shade Burgundy.
And then activating Shade Burgundy is an effect on the field, so anytime an effect on the field is activated, that will trigger Artifact Dagda, and he's going to go set Artifact Scythe. I know a big focus on this weekend is Artifact Scythe. How to beat it, how to do it, how to get it online most effectively is definitely a lot of key decisions that go into choosing which deck to bring here this weekend, and you know, your tech cards. How are you going to beat Scythe? How are you going to get Scythe online?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, right? The big thing is whether or not you're trying to disrupt it, like answer it after it's out, or just ignore it completely, right? And like you can take any of those strategies, whether it's something you normally like more traps, like you're trying to set in response, whether you're trying to answer with the cards like Forbidden Droplet, Cosmic Cyclone, or you're just trying to disrupt it with hand effects, right?
Exactly.
A bunch of different approaches to it. Not an unbeatable card, right? Is
Certainly
the big
not.
thing. And it looks like, oh, he's going to use that Fusion Destiny, the beautiful ultimate rare you were talking about. You can see it especially on the camera right there. The card looks like it's glowing.
It really does. He's coming across really nice here. You can really see the outline of the Destiny heroes on that Fusion Destiny art. It's really beautiful. And then, yeah, we do know that he does have that Destiny Hero Celestial in his hand. So still being able to summon Destroyer is fantastic, you know, but having to use a card from your hand, Secret Rare Destiny Hero Celestial, really pretty. Definitely not something you want to do, but you're okay with it usually just because of how powerful something like Destroyer is, especially when you already have Artifact Scythe online in the back row.
Yep, and he gets the advantage of, once again, he's playing Phantom Knights, right? He has staying power. He'll have access to cards in the graveyard the following turn, along with a Celestial already, right? Which means he'll probably be able to draw 2 at some point. If he happens to draw another monster too, Dasher comes into the mix and gives him something else to sort of accelerate out. But the big thing here is he has Appaloosa alongside the Scythe activation, right? Going to be incredibly hard to beat.
Yeah, and I mean, Appaloosa especially, what you're talking about, Nick, I mean, Kamal doesn't know his opponent is on Drytron, but Appaloosa is one of those cards that's absolutely just a monster against Drytron. Being able to negate Alpha, Zeta, anything you start with, and have multiple negates, it's hard for them to really kind of get a monster that can just attack over Appaloosa. Not a lot of normal summons in that Drytron deck, so it can be really impactful. I mean, let alone if the Scythe does resolve. So Nick's definitely looking for something like Forbidden Droplet, but it looks like he's just starting off with Fusion Destiny. Not the card you want to start off with your turn usually, but when you're facing down Appaloosa, not the worst. Also an ultimate rare. You can really just see it pop. You can see those monsters on it. Just a beautiful ultimate rare out of the OTS Tournament Pack 18. If you want your own copy of Fusion Destiny, participate in tournaments at your local OTS store. You'll be able to get OTS packs for playing and potentially more if you're able to win those tournaments. Maybe you will be able to pull that awesome ultimate rare.
Yep, and as that Fusion Destiny resolves, the Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer comes down to the field. Still just staring down a lot of cards from Kamal's side, obviously, but the main thing is he's trying to answer this Appaloosa so that he can get his Drytron effects online later in the game.
Probably just going to move straight to battle phase and try and attack over this Appaloosa. The Appaloosa's attack is reduced thanks to the Destroyer's continued spec on the field. Just constantly making the opponent's monsters lose 400 attack and defense since there are 2 Destiny heroes in the graveyard. So essentially it's going to be the same since Kamal also has Destroyer. It looks like he is going to activate Destroyer, which is going to prompt Nick to change his own Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer's effect.
So chain link 3, chain link 2, or chain link 3, 2, 3. Yep.
And then that is going to be negated by Appaloosa from Kamal. So Kamal's going to destroy his Artifact Scythe to destroy Nick's Enforcer, and now...
Mine's is mandatory, so it'd be chain
Okay, sorry. Then chain link 2.
Chain link 2, I'll activate Appaloosa.
Sure, chain link 3.
Yep, so since it is a mandatory effect, that will be Chain Link 1. The optional effect for the opponent will go on the Chain Link 2. Appaloosa will be able to negate the Destroyer's graveyard effect, and the Scythe will be able to activate on the field. Oh no, this could be terraforming. There's one card he could grab with this that would probably be absolutely terrifying for Kamal. Even though with this huge board and having something like Destroyer, but the Destroyer effect being spent, he won't be able to chain it if he does add a copy of Mystic Mind to his hand. If he is having to main deck, if you're playing terraforming, why not just have that option in there? It can be quite powerful. Couldn't see what he added on it, and it does.
Was definitely Mystic
Mind.
Mind.
It is
yeah.
Mystic Mind. Here we go.
As he set it down the table, all I could read was Mystic Mind. That was the only part of the card showing, but it's there on the table. It's going to cause a huge wrench in Kamal's plans now. Has to find some sort of an out to it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the Destroyer is going to be destroyed because of Fusion Destiny. Since it's still on the field, it gets destroyed during the next end phase. But we were talking about Artifact Scythe, how powerful it is, like how that is the focal point of a lot of decks. How can you deal with it? Are you going to prevent it from coming out? Are you going to try and deal with it once it's already resolved? This is like, the Drytron strategy, heavily dependent on the extra deck, especially now without Eva. It's going to have to, use that extra deck. But including cards like Mystic Mind, that's a great way to deal with something like Scythe when you go second. A lot of these combo-heavy strategies aren't including Spell and Trap removal in the deck. As such, when they go first in game one, they're not going to be really useful, maybe not the most effective cards in their hands, so they leave those kind of cards in the side deck. But, maybe decking Kamal out will be a little hard with, 60 cards in his deck originally. The Mystic Mind might be able to just sit out there until Nick can get the right number of cards together. He'll be able to replace it with the Drytron Field spell possibly, and then take advantage of that turn. But we'll have to see how this game is going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, Kamal definitely went through a lot of cards on that first turn, though. Like,
True.
easily over 10. Especially if you count the Isold, right? Like,
oh, yeah, the Isold took a bunch of cards out of the deck for sure.
There is a ton of cards already in play, so that might not even be too far off. But, well, we would just have to get an exact count for everything. I mean, I see 6 banish right there. He has 5 cards in hand, right? 2 cards from the main deck on the field, so right there, that's already around 13, I think. Then we count, like, the 4 equips, that's 17. Few extra monsters. He's close to 40.
It is getting close. Yeah, they have that initial, 20-card difference, but maybe in that first turn, Kamal evened out the thing. But, yeah, we're seeing the Mystic Mind's kind of fallen out of favor, right? So there's a lot of cards that kind of deal with it. You can have a Destroyer on the field that can chain its effect and, destroy it on the field. Huge thing. And then the biggest thing with the Adventure package, if you have that token on the field, you can equip the Draco back and then return a card on the opponent's side of the field. So you can just return that Mystic Mind to the hand. But with no token on the field, that's going to be a little difficult for Kamal to achieve, but I'm sure that's what he's going to be looking for as a way just to get Mystic Mind back to the hand or some sort of form of removal. But it's a race against the clock against each player. Like, will Kamal draw the way to deal with that Mystic Mind before Nick draws all the pieces he needs to take advantage and try and finish Kamal off in one turn?
Yeah, I mean, that's the classic Mystic Mind gameplay, right? Like, will you draw your out before I've bought enough time to, break your board?
Phase, I'm going to start with...
Looks like Nick is going to take some sort of action here. Thinking hard about it. And it's Drytron Nova. Going to special summon a Drytron from his deck onto the field.
See which Drytron name he decides to go with here.
Yeah, the cool thing about Drytron, we've talked about it a lot when it was, more prevalent in the metagame. Somewhere between Dragon Ruler and Necroz, in that, you have a lot of, once per turn effects that can do things from the graveyard, but you have this whole, ritual element involved.
Drytron
but just
Data, Aldahaba. Yes.
So he summons Zeta with the Nova. So yeah, with Mystic Mind, as long as your opponent has more monsters, you can still activate your own monster effects. So we'll see what he decides to do here, or just is he trying to thin his deck out a card to get to more cards he needs? But no, it looks like he's trying to just go ahead and start things off right now. With Mystic Mind up, none of the monster effects in Kamal's hand will be able to be activated while he has more monsters. And that Diviner's going to come down and send Herald of the Arclight from the extra deck to the graveyard. So it's going to change its level to level 6, and then the Herald of Arclight will be able to add a ritual monster or a ritual spell from the deck to the hand. Diviner, just a huge card. We saw it kind of came out while Drytron was already in full steam, being really powerful. One of the top decks of the formats, and it just really that and Mu Beta Fafnir just really pushed the deck to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I mean, it just does so much more than Manju used to do, right? That's really the card to replace, right?
Right.
Searchable Fairy, obviously great. The fact that it can modulate to level 6, also incredible, right? Because it gives you access to things like Beatrice.
Yeah, it's a tuner on top of that.
Yeah, it's a gift that keeps on giving. And it gives you access to the Elder Entity Natis, right?
Yep. If you just need that spot removal, just go ahead and send the Natis from your extra deck. Diviner, an all-around just fantastic Yu-Gi-Oh card for sure.
Also incredibly beautiful, right? Some of the best Yu-Gi-Oh artwork we've seen in a long time. So he's going to still look through his deck to resolve that Herald of Arclight. He might have chosen something already. It doesn't look like he's going through his deck anymore. He might be looking at his hand in terms of what he wants to choose, but I assume he selected something. So sending Herald of the Arclight will grab him a ritual monster. We'll see what he grabbed a little bit later on. He's thinking here he's going to link away his Drytron. We'll see exactly for what. Link Karibo is going to be his choice.
Ooh, that is a dark monster. So this is one of the coolest things about Drytron is that you can always link into Link Karibo, and that gives you a dark monster. Plus, if you have any other monster on the field, you have immediate access to something like Dark, you know, the Dark Charmer Gloomy. We're able to take your opponent's Destroyer Phoenix Force. We know Kamal has one in the graveyard. While it's solid to have the Destroyer, you got to be careful though, because when it's sent to the graveyard, that is a graveyard effect that's going to trigger to bring back the Destroyer. So if he even takes Kamal's Destroyer, there might be a chance it ends up back on Kamal's side of the field, but. Looks like the Zeta effect is going to tribute Draconids from the hand. Zeta comes to the field and adds Meteonis Drytron from the deck to the hand. Nick's probably, I mean, with Draconids in the graveyard and the Meteonis Drytron in the hand, he might be looking to try and finish the game off. Kamal is at 6,000 after having to use that Verte.
Yeah, he just has to be mindful of how many monsters he has on the field, but it looks like he's going to reduce some amount of that with the Forbidden Droplets.
I'll do 2.
Gonna send Artifact Scythe and Mystic Mine, so now he will no longer be slowed down by his own Mystic Mine. And at the same time, it's going to negate that Appaloosa's effect, so it will not be able to negate anything when he proceeds past this point.
I'm sorry.
The rest of his turn.
Yeah, we'll see exactly what he wants to do here now. Basically, he's unlocked the game, right? Getting rid of Mystic Mine, you know he's going to make some sort of proactive action here. We know he has access to that Meteonis already.
Yep, and there it is.
Okay. I'll tribute 2. Force to summon Drytron, Meteonis, Draconids.
Yep.
Enter battle.
Enough monsters to summon Draconids, and we'll see if this is going to be enough to finish off with the droplet.
Declare an attack on Appaloosa.
Having the attack.
You're at 6,000.
No.
Oh, 0. Right.
400?
16.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
Appaloosa is halved for this turn. The attack gets frozen, but since it's effect negated, it will go to 0 after the end of the turn.
400. No. 800.
800 attack, and now Draconids is going to attack over it.
Can you turn the card?
Yeah.
Yeah, taking a moment to read that Draconids.
Yep. Huge ritual monster, going to deal a ton of damage.
It's a good one, and you see Nick isn't really focused on that. There's no Herald here. With Eva being gone in the last Forbidden list, he found a different way to utilize the Drytron cards, more in like a mid-rangey, still solid deck, but not focusing on just that turn 1 negate that doesn't let your opponent really activate any effects, but just playing it like, you know, a solid deck, and that's paying off huge here after facing down like a really strong combo from Kamal, not having Droplet or anything, just having that Fusion Destiny and Terraforming, right? Those were really the only 2 cards he had. Kamal really only put up 1 form of disruption, and having that Artifact Scythe, but really showing you that just because Scythe resolves doesn't mean the game's over by any means. You know, with Nick going into this tournament, decorated duelist, a veteran player, main decking copies of Mystic Mine, knowing that it might be something he'll need, especially against all these decks that focus on making these huge boards turn 1. If you can force out all the negates, activate Mystic Mine, you take your time until you're ready to finish off the opponent in 1 turn. And, you know, I was testing, it paid off beautifully here. I mean, you can't ask for a better result than, you know, winning a game against, you know, one of the favorites probably to win here this weekend. And I also know, like, when you're playing against someone who's a well-known player and they're playing maybe a strategy you're not as familiar with or you haven't seen, so I get a little nervous. I'm like, oh no, maybe you know something I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit behind. And but then you just got to focus on your game and keep your strategy that you came into the tournament with, and hopefully it works out the best for you. And it did work out here for Nick Ma in Game 1.
Definitely. I mean, I've been through that exact feeling. I'm sure tons of people at home have too, right? When you play someone who you know is like someone to be mindful of, and they play some card you're not familiar with, all of a sudden you're questioning your deck choice, right? Like,
wait,
what am I doing?
Did I miss something?
Yeah, did I miss something?
Was there an update?
What is this?
I didn't know
exactly. Can I read the most recent patch notes or something? Like, did something change? But yeah, and basically, but Nick is able to take it down. The big thing we talked about, right? Scythe is not necessarily game over, right? There's ways to beat it. One of them is just ignoring it. Mystic Mind, great at ignoring things, right? You're like, oh, you did what? Let's take a few minutes and think about it, right? That's what Mystic Mind does. It gives you tons of time to potentially draw and to that field, and that's what exactly Nick did. He found a crazy opening with Forbidden Dropless to reduce attack and just end the duel with a ton of damage thanks to these huge ritual monsters. And sometimes that's what it takes, right? Another way, like, ignore what your opponent's doing. I'm just trying to just reduce your life points to 0, right? That's it.
I think you touched on like how Drytron is kind of still similar to like something like Necros, and I think Nigma's version of this deck is even closer to like the Necros deck, where you're able just to, not the strongest deck. You're not putting the Herald out turn 1, but you're able to survive. And if you can survive, we talk about Phantom Knights having a lot of follow-up. You're being able to have the Drytron names in your graveyard. As long as you can survive, there's always a lot of ways to fill the board. And with link monsters being a thing, anytime you can get a bunch of monsters onto the field, you have access to powerful effects like the Dark Charmer, Destroyer, Phoenix Enforcer, in the terms of Verite Anaconda letting you access that. You can still use things like Artifact Dagda, just like all the other decks, and then just still rely on that power of the Drytrons. And including cards like Terraforming, the field spell for Drytron we don't even see played, or haven't seen played with a lot in the past, but being able to include Fafnir along that, so when you draw Terraforming going first, you don't necessarily need to get Mystic Mind. You can get Drytron Fafnir and let you enable your Drytron strategy a little further.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one thing that's super interesting about Mystic Mind and Drytron specifically, Drytron's one of those decks where it's not always one where you want to play hand effects, right? Because you really need all your cards to sort of do something, especially just because the requirement, I need to tribute this to get my guy and get your engine going, right? It's not like you need all of your cards all the time. Like, there's a couple that are powerful enough, but they always require a little something extra to get going. So typically you can't incorporate all these hand effects because you're not trying to dilute that core engine to make sure all your cards are live. Mystic Mind, we keep on talking about, right? Regardless of what your opponent does, if you can stick it, it's going to be enough, right? So it's not something where, especially now with hand effects, you always want like Nibiru plus something. You need 2 points to beat these like huge Adventure Synchro combo decks, or even the 60-card deck that Kamal's playing. But Drytron can do that with just Mystic Mind, and we'll see exactly how that plays out in Game 2 now that Kamal is aware. Both players are totally aware of what the opponent has going on. Kamal is going to start with a Water Entrenches, banishing it to grab Rites of Atmosphere, and then Nick's Season Opening is going to activate. Oh, man. He activates Droll Lockbird, but Kamal answers back with Called by the Grave, one of the most powerful quick play spells in the format, right?
Yeah, you love to see when your opponent has that one of powerful spell in his 60-card deck. You're like, wait, how many cards in your deck? And you drew the one of? Oh, man. But definitely a huge one here for sure. Because I was excited that Droll Lockbird was about to really cause Kamal some trouble.
Yeah, especially looking at this hand here. But, I mean, even though you're playing 60 cards, it's going to be 60 good ones, right? Whether it's 1-ofs or 3-ofs, you're going to find cards that are powerful enough. Exactly, right? So he's going to go ahead and use that Magician's Souls. He's going to go and dump down Illusion of Chaos to the graveyard.
And that'll trigger that Fateful Adventure to add the Draco back, the Rideable Dragon, from his deck to the hand.
Yep, and then we will probably see that powerful interaction. Magician's Soul's just the big upside that, I could set these face-up continuous spells, draw more cards, right? Yeah, just another way you can just add this additional advantage and take advantage of cards that, otherwise might just stick around, right?
Yeah, the synergy of all these strategies is just fantastic to see. And, you see it in a variety of different decks. We've seen this, Souls plus the adventure stuff included in, the synchro strategies that are focused on Hack of Firebreaks. We see Kamal using it here with a more Isolde-focused deck. And it looks like he is going to grab that Adventurer, the Magicore Warrior of the Relics, Adventurer card.
Magicore Warrior of the Relics. How do you like me to cut?
Basically just a Warrior Extender.
Yep, a Warrior Extender that you can just incorporate in your Adventurer package, right? So, match made in heaven here. We talk about bridges between themes, right? Like, that's one right there to get your Adventurer stuff right into Warriors, right into Isolde, then into maybe some Phantom Knight cards to get going.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's something we haven't seen really coming into this tournament. Nothing I've even heard whispers about really. So to see a well-known player, taking advantage of that here in this tournament is really fantastic. And we do see the Souls. We were talking about the cool cards you can send. He had that Divine Sword Phoenix Blade, a card you're going to be able to add back. It's just a free draw there from the Magician's Souls. The synergy is just great. You can see a lot of thought went into this deck building process to come and try and take advantage of it at our first in-person event in a couple of years. I mean, I know a lot of players, they want to win this tournament. They've been waiting so long for in-person events, and now they're back. This is a tournament you want to have on you'll always be known as the one who won the first one back.
Yeah, right. This is really just the return of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series in terms of live play, right? We don't know how much or how long Kamal's been cooking this in the pot either, right? Like, this deck could have been just around for a while, but maybe
secret,
just keeping on the low for when it mattered, and he's bringing here this weekend. And we see him Link Summon and Predaplant Verite Anaconda going to send down Fusion Destiny, kicking off the Dasher and Celestial from his deck to the graveyard as well to summon the mighty, the powerful, the format-defining Destiny Hero, Destroyer, Phoenix, Enforcer.
Yeah, just it's not often like, oh, there's always, every set has some fantastic cards, but for ones like to just really dominate the format, Destroyer is just one of those you can just read it and be like, wow, this card is just incredible. And when you play against it, it feels even stronger because not only is it disrupting you, like on your turn, like something like Zodiac Dryden, but it's coming back. It puts those cards in the graveyard that are going to fuel your next turn. Just really fantastic. But just the Destroyer here from Kamal. So even though he did have that call by the grave on the Droll and Lockbird, not a lot of other ways to get too much on strategy, too much on the board. So just the Destroyer against Drytron, a little scary. He's going to probably need some backup monster effects in the hand to be able to do much this turn.
Yeah, I mean, even with those draws for Magician Souls as well, so he must have drawn very poorly in order to get exactly here right now. But
he used that Alpha in hand, triggering the Zeta, and that is met by Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring from Kamal. Ash, you know, hitting the Alpha is a huge one because you're making sure they can't access that one copy of Cyber Angel Ben 10. Pretty hard to get to outside that, but now Nick has Cyber Emergency, so he'll be able to grab a different name. He's probably going to look for something like Gamma here, I'd guess. Gamma is a really good one. You can tribute Drytron. It summons back when you get 2 level 1s on the field. You can go into that Mu Beta Fafnir and get another Drytron name into the graveyard. And then, you know, having the Fafnir on the field to be able to use the materials for the Meteonis Drytron is huge. So it works really well when you have that. Get the Zeta online, get the Meteonis Drytron, and then you really get things going.
Yeah, just the fact you have a Drytron that can get you back in it in terms of advantage, right? Like another body on the field for you to use for your Link 7 plays or just whatever you might need going on. We'll see what Nick exactly chooses to do here. I don't believe I saw him search the Gamma. It might have been a little off screen though, so we'll see. Big thing also I think is interesting from Kamal's side is though he's incorporating like a lot of hand effects into the 60 card deck, right? Something you don't always see just because usually it's like, oh, I need more engine cards, right? More things to extend, more things to start. But incorporating a solid amount of them, probably I would assume it might be because he has access to Crossout Designator somewhere in the mainer side, but we'll have to see exactly what is in store shortly. It looks like Forbidden Droplets is going to be the next card for Nick.
Huge, yeah. It's huge to have Droplet when your opponent just has that one monster on the field. It's pretty easy. The downside of Droplet is like when you have to negate a bunch of monsters, right? You have to send a ton of cards, and sometimes if you have to send 4 cards, you're not going to have much follow-up after that. But having the Droplet here is huge. And it looks like he sent Terraforming, so he'll be able to chain the monster effect. Because your opponent can only not chain with the type of card you send. So since he sent a spell, his opponent can't respond to spells, but we'll be able to chain the monster effect. Destroyer is going to destroy itself to destroy Verte Anaconda, and then the Destroyer will trigger in the graveyard, special summon back a Destiny Hero from his graveyard during his next standby phase.
Yep. Kamal's in with 6,000 life points, though. Nick is going to activate Fafnir next. Let's see what Drytron he grabs.
Yeah, 6,000 is not too hard for Drytron to put on the board.
Definitely not.
We see that Terraforming grabbing Fafnir, and then Drytron Nova just having access to, you know, emergency Nova Fafnir. I mean, the Fafnir gets you the Nova, but you get access to all of these Drytron names. We know he has Alpha in hand to tribute already, so yeah, getting that Gamma as you mentioned. So now Gamma, Zeta, has all the names he needs. Just going to have to figure out a way to put the damage he needs on the board. Really,
yeah, he's looking pretty close already, right? Like 6,000 is not much. Like we talk about cards like that just in games quickly, like specific Link 4s, what have you. So 6,000, not a ton of damage to deal. So maybe that Forbidden Droplets was just like a Raigeki, right? Like really, I'm just trying to get rid of your monsters right now and just crack open game. It could be one of the modes that this deck uses to win, right? Like you're either doing something sort of small with Artifact Scythe or Lancia in the first round, like a Destiny Hero Phoenix Forcer combo with Artifact Dagda, or you're just trying to reduce their life points to 0, right? I'm just trying to attack for game.
Yeah, that's the best way to win, yeah. I always tell people that when I used to play, I'm like, yeah, I want to do all the things, but my main goal here is to make your life points go to 0. But let's see what he decides to.
Yeah, so how would you like to?
So he's going to tribute off the Gamma to summon Delta from his graveyard. And since he just added Meteonis Drytron to his hand with that Zeta, he can reveal it and draw a card. And now that the Gamma's in the graveyard, yeah, he's going to be able to do enough to have a game here. He'll be able to go into Fafnir here. And Fafnir will be able to send down another Drytron potentially.
Yeah, it has to still be mindful of hand effects.
Yeah, there's still
degree, right?
yeah, there's a few cards in Kamal's hand. When he didn't have like that explosive start, you can only but assume that there are those monster effects in the hands they could potentially be holding. Something like Nibiru the Primal Being would be huge.
Yep, effect failure.
Draw trying new beta. Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah, but that's a good point, right? Like, we saw Kamal's hand. It looked strong, right? But he didn't have a lot of gas. Something was different going on in his hands. It's usually because he's has more like reactive than proactive cards, right?
That makes sense.
Sometimes it's not the worst either, right? Like, yeah, my board is smaller, but I'm still going to be able to react more, right? Like, whether or not I field an extract monster that's able to disrupt you versus something that disrupts you from my hand. Not too different. It looks like he's going to activate the effective Gamma now, trading off a monster to special summon back Alpha from his graveyard. Gamma, one of the few cards that can special summon a Drytron in attack mode, which definitely matters here, right? So he gets the Alpha out into attack mode. 2,000 attack on these Drytron monsters. They look small, but 2,000 meters. Yep.
You wouldn't expect a level 1 monster. You wouldn't expect them to have 2,000 attack, but they do. And now looks like he isn't going to be able to go for that extra damage, so he's going to leave Kamal with 2,000 life points. Faithful interface up, going to go into Zeus, main phase 2, and then link away the 2 Drytrons for Predaplant Verite Anaconda. Now, Kamal does have that Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer coming back from the graveyard during his next standby phase, which will be able to deal with a lot of what Nick is going to be able to put on the board, if not all of it. Because if Kamal activates Destroyer's effect, that's going to have to prompt Nick to use Zeus and then chain his own Destroyer effect so he can get the Destroyer destroyed and not send it to the graveyard. So while the Zeus will directly deal with Kamal's Destroyer, it also removes all the cards off Nick Ma's field as well. So yeah, you want to take out that Fatal Adventure, going to destroy the Predaplant Verite Anaconda, destroying Fatal Adventure, and passing the turn. But yeah, Kamal draws, standby. Here comes the Destroyer, which is going to deal with this board. So if Kamal has some sort of follow-up after this, he might be able to get something going here in a game that was looking pretty close to being over.
Yeah, definitely looks like 3 cards in hand for Kamal. A spell and a couple monsters. I think one of those spells is Rites of Armus here. Or sorry, the spell.
I think it looks like a Drone Lockbird maybe, which is not the greatest here in this situation. But yeah, you were right about the right.
I mean, but Drone Locker, one of those cards against Drytron, though. Like, you can't help but side it in, right? Like, ooh, talk about hoses. And they put out the Drytron fire for sure.
They really do, yeah. Drill's is one of those shutdown cards against the deck if you can get it at the right time.
Two in hand.
Yes, sir.
Chain DPE.
Activates. Right, it looks like he's going to chain Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer.
Here's this.
Okay, so Nick decides to let him resolve the Destroyer, so he's going to keep his Destroyer on the field, let the Zeus go away, and he's still going to have that point of interaction. He could take out that Adventure token right now if he wants, or he waits to see what his opponent summoned. Smart heads-up play here from Nick, holding off on his effect. He does know he has that Magic Core Warrior, the Relics. He's going to attempt to special summon since he controls the Adventure token on the field.
Yeah, so now he's just left with a single card in hand after this Magic Core hits play. Nick has a graveyard full of Drytron monsters. So if he can't make it to next turn, he also has some gas left in the tank in terms of what he can do.
Sorry.
And with Kamal only at 2,000, probably going to be an easy way to win if he can manage to survive this turn and depending on what Kamal does. And it looks like it's going to be Drone Lockbird as the last card that comes into play. So everything is on the table for Kamal, which means that now no cards in hand. Destiny Hero Celestial
Gets to draw 2 fresh ones to add to his turn, and we'll see if they're going to be able to extend his plays here. You know, normal summon Drone Lockbird, not fantastic. Doesn't feel great, especially when you're playing against something like Drytron, but it's still a monster you can use as a link material on the field, so definitely not the worst here. So still summons are now. Oh, and he gets to target Draco back because it is an equip card.
Draco back is fine. What do you think on resolution?
You know, it looks like Infernoble Renato is just a huge draw here off of that Celestial.
Yeah, pressuring Nick to use this Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer effect soon, right, before the Draco back comes down. Also gives him another monster. I mean, you touched on it too. Like, normal summon Drone Lockbird, not the best feeling, but now, with Link monsters in general, normal summoning anything means you could probably do something with a Link monster. So, not the worst position for Kamal to be in.
Very true.
Fafnir.
So he's going to use
Destroy.
destroyers. He wants to leave the destroyer on the field. He thinks he might need some of that protection to survive this turn. And now he's going to, you want to double check. The other effect that Magic Core has is like if a monster that mentions adventure battles, you can set an adventure trap card from your deck, but you don't see a lot of play with that trap card, so probably not having that other effect come up too often. So he's going to go ahead and take down the Magic Core, though, and now a Link Summon coming down for Halka Fibrax. As long as you have a tuner on the field and then a non-tuner, well, there's another monster, you can make Halka Fibrax, and Halka Fibrax is going to summon a monster from his deck, and it looks like Nick has seen enough, and he's going to concede this game, knowing that Kamal will be able to, do so much of that Halka Fibrax, probably end up ending the game at turn since Nick has no defense, and with time winding down in the round, Nick not wanting to take a draw, wanting to make sure he's going to have enough time to go into that game 3, and so he concedes a little quickly, but maybe, a strategic concession here, so he'll be able to play knowing he'll be able to go first in game 3.
Yeah, 100%, right? Because I think it's very likely Nick loses that turn, even if not But bigger thing is that he needs time on the clock, especially with something like Drytron, especially against this deck, right? Like, he's going to be able to do something turn 1, and you just hope it's going to be impactful enough for Kamal just not be able to do as much during his turn so that he can at least get a life point differential down on the table.
Yep, and Kamal evening things out here. That's something, even when things look bad, you only had 6,000 life points in open board, but had plenty of those monster effects in hands to stymie Nicholas's push there to try and fish him off in that one turn. Kamal getting that bounce back. Celestial being huge, grabbing him that Infernoble Knight Reginald, and now he is going to be side decking as if he's going second. Even when you're going second, like Drytron, the turn 1 boards aren't as just devastating as they used to be. It used to be you're going second to Drytron, chances are you're not going to be able to do anything unless you have that droplet. Even if you had that droplet for the Herald, they'd still have Herald Orange Light in hand. But losing even, they lost a lot of that staying power for their first turn. And maybe they have a little less powerful board. We'll have to see. Maybe he chooses to go second because, there's really not too much of a board he can make on that first turn. But, with Verity Anaconda, Artifact Dagda existing, at least he could probably rely on trying to get that Artifact Scythe to the field and cutting Kamal off from his extra deck and hopefully slowing him down.
Yeah, we'll have to see exactly how it plays out. Now both duels very aware of what the game plans are for both strategies, right? Nick will be going first, which is going to be a huge deal, as you mentioned, especially for Artifact Scythe. But now knowing that Kamal has a solid number of points of interaction, right? Like we've seen a few throughout both games, obviously prepared for Scythe in some capacity. It'll be an exciting one for sure. I want to see more of this deck because there are also pieces that he has not played, which I think come into even more exciting things he can do with it. So this is going to be a cool one. I think after this tournament, this is going to be a deck a lot of people look to.
Yeah, it certainly is. Especially when we've seen how the cards all synergize really well together. It looked like he didn't have anything. What can you really draw into with Celestial? You need something you can extend onto the field. And the Infernoble was the perfect answer, as he was able to get so much just off one card. When you show some of those monsters, you get 2 warriors. You either can access the Isolde or Halka Fibrax. 2 of the best Link 2s to ever grace the game. Being able to special summon a monster from the deck, each of them alike. And now, Kamal using both of them in the same strategy. Definitely a powerful deck, but going second, we'll have to see if he's going to be able to deal with if Nick draws, a decent Drytron hand, you can almost guarantee we'll have that Dagda and Scythe online.
Yeah, definitely, and we're going to head into the 3rd and final game of round 2 here at YCS Charlotte. Kamal Crooks, Nick Ma, both incredible duelists. We'll see who takes it down and moves on with a 2-0 record in the event. And it looks like Nick is going to kick things off, gets rid of Alpha, summons Zeta. He's going to grab a ritual spell. It's Meteonis Drytron.
We'll see where he goes from here. Oh, Nova, so that's already 3 different names. Zeta, Delta, and now probably Alpha coming to the field. Yep, and it looks like, so when Drytron gets all the names on lines, that's when things get kind of scary. If you don't have something like Drone Lockbird or those monster effects in hand to slow the Drytron strategy down, could be disastrous here for Kamal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely saw that Delta thought it was Alpha just because I thought it was the dream combo, but he was able to grab it anyways off of the Nova, so he will have access to its effect very soon. All he really has to do is tribute it for something else, get into the graveyard, so then he can then use it, or just use it immediately for a Link monster as well. Definitely an option. He's going to go ahead and summon Link Koribo to the field using the alpha. Now putting in the graveyard.
Effect of Delta. I'm going to
I put the top
tribute.
2 to the bottom.
Sure. Tribute this. And then I'll reveal the draw.
And then it looks like the Delta is coming out, so he's going to be able to reveal that Meteos Drytron and draw a card. With time winding down, maybe Kamal has a little bit of advantage. You know, if Nick decides to go into something like Verite Anaconda, that costs 2,000 life points. It could be much more costly as, you know, the time is dwindling, but we'll have to see if he just avoids using Verite just simply because of how much time is left in this round. But, oh, Kamal has the monster effect you want to have in your hand. That's Nibiru, the Primal Being. If you summon 5 or more times, you can activate the card, tribute all the monsters on the field, give your opponent a token with stats equal to all the monsters tributed. One of the most impactful cards you can have to disrupt the opponent on the first turn.
Yeah, definitely a bane to most of these combo strategies. Drytron being one of them. Incredible that we get to see it here at the first Nibiru, really, of the tournament, right?
Yep, I think this was our first one touching down.
Nick is going to push through with a Gamma, going to use its effect, grab
Zeta, and tributing Benton is going to be able to grab a fairy, and he still has his normal summon, I believe, so he'll be able to go Diviner. So even with this Nibiru coming down, Nick is still going to be able to push through this this point of interaction.
Yeah, but that still leads back to that question, like whether or not he's going to actually use Predator Land Verite Anaconda, right? Because
that's my biggest wondering, yeah.
Yeah, like especially because we've seen he's not incorporating any sort of like herald, like negation thing, right? So he has to end on something a little bit different. So we'll see exactly what he chooses to do.
I will normal summon Herald, Diviner Herald, effect.
Oh, we're going to get hit with Effect Veiler.
Come on, having a couple monster effects in the hand that you can use, which is huge. But with Diviner on the field, it's still a tuner. You can be able to make something. He could Synchro for Herald of Arclight already, just with the 2 Drytrons and the Diviner. We'll have to see what he decides to do, though. Looks like he might just go for a Link Summon instead.
Okay. I will.
Ooh, I do see. Is that an Artifact Lancia in his hand? That's a pretty good one to have. So even when Kamal's going to get his turn, he might already have something that's going to slow Kamal down.
Effect to send. Mubeta, yeah.
Overlays for Mubeta Fafnir, so he can send a Drytron from his deck to the graveyard.
I'm going to send.
Oh, so he has Draconid in Fafnir, so he'll be able to have that combination where you're able to negate an opponent's spell or trap card as long as you have a machine that sees all you have the Draconids out, which doesn't come up too often, but
activate Meteor's Drytron.
yeah, he can tribute the 2 materials underneath Fafnir. That's 4,000 attack.
Attach 2.
So he's going to summon that Draconid.
To special summon. And then I'll go effect. Let's see, I'll go.
Taking a moment to consider his options with time running out. You have to be a little worried if he makes a small mistake. All Kamal would have to do is just a little bit of damage, and it could end things here for him. But if you can find a way to get some damage out here on his first turn, maybe he'll do something. It looks like he's eyeing that Verite Anaconda, but realizing maybe that, I cannot go into that Verite Anaconda. It's just time winding down. Can't lose that. And now he's going to link away the Phoenix and the token into Nightmare Unicorn to try and spin that Nibiru back into the deck.
I will go to entries.
And it looks like Nick is done with his turn. So yeah, I think time and the Nibiru and the effect failure are all playing a factor in slowing down Nick's turn. And Nick is going to start with Artifact Lancia, which is going to be followed up by Durandal here from Kamal.
Yeah, this looks like it's unfortunately just going to end with a draw here with both duels at 8,000. But these duels will still move on with 1-1 records, right?
Right.
Or 1-0-1 records.
Yeah, a draw isn't necessarily a loss. It's just a half win. You only get 1 point for a draw, where you would get 3 points for a win, but you do only get 0 for a loss, so at least you're salvaging something out of the round when it is a draw. We'll have to see if maybe Kamal is able to do some damage here before.
How's this getting?
I equipped it to your guy and destroyed it.
Oh, okay.
So he grabs Fire Flint Lady with the Durandal.
Okay, yeah.
It looks like he's going to grab Super Quantum Red Layer. One that we haven't seen in a while in terms of
Super Quantum Red Layer.
It's
fire
like,
warrior options.
It's like that Cyber Dragon warrior, you're able to special summon to the field, and an easier way to get a warrior onto the field. Not really using the Super Quantum part of it, more so for the Cyber Dragon effect, but definitely a cool card that, you know, I've always liked the Super Quantum cards. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first time we saw them was during it was like Extra Deck Monarchs, right? Was really when those cards started seeing a lot of play, but definitely like a powerful engine. But it's cool that you can just still access it, right? Like the big thing is that this is really like a big warrior deck at this point, right? Like what warriors can you incorporate, especially like fire ones, especially because of the access you get with Durandal.
Oh yeah, very true.
So he's going to activate Living Fossil next, bring back Effect Veiler. So he's access to 2 monsters on the field, a Spellcaster, a Warrior, a Tuner, and a non-tuner. We'll see exactly what he chooses to do with those monsters. Likely going to be a Link Summon, and it is for Crystron Halqifibrax. So taking advantage of the fact that Effect Veiler is a tuner right there, and that he was able to get it back with Living Fossil after special summoning the Quantum Red Layer. He's going to grab Deskbot 001 from his deck. A tuner monster we've seen quite a lot of, right? Especially with Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon, right?
Oh, yeah, and it's just going to keep coming back. Anytime you special summon the 2 monsters at the same time, you can bring back that Deskbot 001. So it's great to make the Auroradon, and then the Auroradon helps bring it back to the field. It's really fantastic. And one of those impactful tuners we've seen used with Hulk for quite some time now. And then, yeah, Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon, fantastic Link monster, going to get him those 3 tokens on the field. Plus, it has those other effects to be able to special summon Mecha Phantom Beast from the deck. We'll have to see if he decides to do all the effects. So, yeah, since multiple monsters are summoned, he gets to bring back that Deskbot 001. Then he's going to Synchro. That's a 1-star tuner, a 3-star token. So we're going to probably see Herald of Arclight.
Yep, and there it is in the leftmost column from our view. Yeah, it's just incredible. It's 2 tuners, right? It gets you so much with Halqifibrax, so much with Auroradon, so much with the Deskbot 001. And we'll see next he gets the Mecha Phantom Beast Colt Wing.
Yep, attributing those other 2 tokens to Auroradon's other effect to special summon the Mecha Phantom Beast from the deck. And the Colt Wing will give him more tokens. And then that will bring the Deskbot 001 back from the graveyard yet again. So he'll be able to synchro for another level 4. And that's Cupid Pitch. Cupid Pitch, a really good card. You can add a monster with 600 defense from his deck to hand. Doesn't look like... Yeah, he's going to summon Synchro for Shooting Riser. Shooting Riser Dragon is going to send a monster from his deck to the graveyard. And it looks like Nick has seen enough. He knows he's not going to be able to fight back. Even with that Lancia not being able to banish, he's going to concede, and Kamal Crooks is going to move on 2-0 and win the win over Nick Ma here in round 2 of YCS Charlotte.
Yeah, it looked like time might have been in fact there, but it clearly wasn't. Kamal able to take victory. You know, another remote to the YCS champion who's making his way back on the main stage now here at YCS Charlotte. But we're going to cut to a quick break. We'll be back with an interview with our winner, so make sure to stay tuned. Coming back to the live feature match table.
Oh, it feels fantastic. I wish we had this going on for the rest of the year. Remote duels is fun, but it's not better than RL.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. There's different energy here, right? And that's the big thing. So, played your last match against Nick Ma, Drytron, right? Anything stand out for you during that match?
The Mystic Mine, I wasn't fully prepared for it. So when he mined me game 1 to then just kill me, I was like, I guess I gotta. That's why game 2 I popped my field away so I can play around Mystic Mine. But yeah, Mystic Mine was the surprise factor for sure.
Definitely a card, right? Especially when they get it off their 1 copy of Terraforming. Just that's how it plays, though. So with your deck, right, definitely a unique one. Are there any matchups you're sort of like more looking forward to playing in the tournament?
The base deck, that's why I usually practice the most for and theory craft my deck for. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so like the Adventurous Synchro deck, right? Like the 10E one, yeah. Definitely a popular pick, so we'll see. You're expected to play against it for sure. So last but not least, how do you feel about your chance to win it all?
Ooh, how do I feel? It would be amazing if I win it all again. It's something hard to put into words, to be honest.
Definitely a surreal experience, right? But you've been
Yeah.
there before, so maybe you could get there again. We'll be back with more coverage of YCS Charlotte, so make sure to stay tuned.